I had one leg in and one leg out of my pants, not a life decision, when the door to my bedroom creaked open. At first, I thought it was my roommate, which would have been annoying, sure, but survivable. But when I looked up, hand halfway through, pulling up a pair of aggressively slim-fit joggers, I locked eyes with a man I'd never seen before in my life. And he was just standing there, in the doorway, blinking at me. I froze. He froze. My pants did not freeze. They gave up entirely and slid down to my ankle in defeat. There was a silence so long, so weird, and so intense that I genuinely considered if this was how I died, half-dressed, in a tank top, with socks that didn't match. He tilted his head, the way dogs do when they hear jazz for the first time. I cleared my throat, heart thumping. Hi, are you lost? He didn't move. You live here? No. I just break into apartments and try on pants for fun, I snapped, then immediately regretted the sarcasm, because this guy was tall, broad-shouldered, and carrying a very serious-looking duffel bag. His mouth twitched like he was trying not to laugh. Right. Sorry. I'm friends with Mason. He said I could crash here. Oh. Mason. My roommate. Of course. I fumbled with my pants, finally managing to yank them up in a heroic struggle that probably burned 200 calories. Well, Mason's not here, so maybe knock next time? I thought this was the guest room, he said with a shrug. Didn't expect a half-naked man to be in it. Well, I said, hands on hips. You found one. His eyes dipped, just for a second, then snapped back up to mine. I caught it. The flicker. The O. Followed by a very slow, I folded my arms across my chest and stared him down. He was annoyingly good-looking, with that slightly messy, don't try hair and a jaw that probably had its own gym membership. He wore a black t-shirt that clung a little too perfectly to his arms and jeans that said he knew how to stand in front of mirrors. So, I said, are you going to just stand there or… Oh, right. He finally stepped back, but only a half step. I'm Nick, by the way. I didn't ask, but I said, hi Nick, anyway. Then I stared at him until he got the hint and closed the door. I exhaled hard and flopped onto the bed, heat rising up the back of my neck. What just happened? Nick, friend of Mason. Guest room. Mix-up. Fine. Cool. Except for one thing. This apartment doesn't have a guest room. I sat on the edge of my bed, fully pantsed now, thank you very much, and still trying to convince myself that I hadn't just hallucinated. A 6-foot stranger with cheekbones and charm walking into my room like it was his. But then the knock came. A soft, almost guilty little knock. I opened the door about 3 inches, just enough to peek through without risking another full-body stare down. And there he was again, Nick, with his hands up like he was approaching a skittish animal. Hey, he said. And wow, that voice was annoyingly smooth. Sorry again. Totally thought this was the guest room. I raised an eyebrow. We don't have a guest room, he blinked. You don't? Nope. Unless you count the coat closet, which, based on your size, you definitely wouldn't fit in. He smiled. Not sheepishly, not nervously. Just casually. Like this was all part of some quirky little meet-cute he was improvising in real time. He leaned a bit on the door frame, letting his duffel bag drop to the floor beside him with a heavy thud. Mason said I could crash for the night. Said he left the door unlocked for me, he explained. I walked in, saw the first open room, and, well, my bad. That was it? No offense, I said, but that was not the kind of walk-in experience I planned for today. Hey, to be fair, he said with a subtle smirk, you didn't seem too upset at first. A little surprised, maybe, but not upset. I narrowed my eyes. I was mostly concerned you might steal my phone, or murder me, or worse, judge my socks. He glanced down at my mismatched socks. Honestly, they're bold. I respect the chaos. I crossed my arms and leaned against the door. So, you're Mason's, what, friend? Ex? Secret cousin? Random guy he met at the gym who never left? Nick grinned like I'd caught him in the middle of a prank. Friend from college. We used to be in the same band. Oh, cool, I said. Let me guess. Lead vocals? Bass player, he replied. Low and steady. I tried not to smile. Tried and failed. Anyway, he added, nodding toward the hallway. I'll just grab the couch or something. Sorry again for the, accidental strip show ambush. Strip show? I scoffed. I was putting on pants. That's the opposite of a strip show. Depends on your perspective, he said, flashing a wink before turning down the hall. Like he hadn't just made my stomach do gymnastics. I closed the door, leaned my head back against it, and stared at the ceiling. What was that? Stranger walks in. Stranger flirts. Stranger walks out. A few seconds later, I heard rustling. A zipper. The creak of the old couch frame. Then a muffled curse. Something wrong? I called through the door, even though I told myself I wasn't. Getting involved. Yeah, came his voice. Your cat just took over the couch, like, fully sprawled out. Gave me a death glare when I got close. I cracked the door again and peeked out. Sure enough, my roommate's fluffy orange menace was curled right in the center of the couch, tail twitching with smug authority. She's territorial, I said, trying not to laugh. And spiteful. She's a queen, Nick muttered, grabbing his duffel bag again. Any chance she lets me have a corner, or should I sleep in the kitchen? I sighed, already regretting the words as they left my mouth. You can sit on the floor in here, if you promise to keep your eyes at shoulder level. He picked up the bag and gave me that same infuriating smirk. Scout's honor. I opened the door wider. He walked in like he belonged. Nick stood, just inside my doorway, scanning the room like he was taking inventory. His duffel bag landed with a soft thunk against the corner of my bookshelf, and he took one look at the single rickety chair in the corner. Guess the cat won, he said. Yeah, I muttered. She tends to do that. I peeked down the hall and caught sight of our cat, Princess Velcro, draped across the couch like Cleopatra in a fur coat, tail flicking with calculated dominance. Her eyes met mine like she knew exactly what she was doing. And what she was doing was ruining my life. I can just sit here, Nick said, pointing at the floor beside my bed like it was a throne. I've slept in worse places. Like where? A battlefield? A public restroom? I asked, arms folded. Worse, he said with a shiver. Freshman dorm with 4 other band dudes and 1 microwave. Never again. I rolled my eyes but pulled my desk chair out for him anyway. Here. It squeaks like it's haunted, but it's technically furniture. He walked over to it, gave it a gentle tap with his hand, and grinned. I don't trust it. I'm sitting on the floor. I offered you the chair. You did, he said, lowering himself to the carpet. But I like the floor. It's neutral territory. Neutral from what? You, me, your dangerous socks, I smirked. Still on those? They haunt me, he said, settling in cross-legged like this wasn't weird at all. Also, they clash with your entire vibe. I sat down a few feet from him and grabbed the nearest snack from my bedside stash, a half-eaten bag of chili lime chips. I held it out. Want some? He gave me a look like I'd just handed him a treasure map. Do I want some? I live for these. Oh? And what else do you live? For Nick from nowhere? Uncomfortable silences, cats with attitudes, and awkward late-night conversations with half-dressed strangers, he said, reaching into the bag. I laughed, too loud, and almost choked on a chip. That's weirdly specific, he shrugged. So is this entire situation. He wasn't wrong. The lights were low. We were sitting on the floor of my bedroom. I barely knew his last name. And yet there was this calm, unexpected rhythm to it. Not forced, just strange, and a little warm. So, I said, crunching thoughtfully, why didn't you just ask Mason which room to go to? He wiped chip dust off his fingers. I did. He said, first door on the left. Your room. I blinked. No, it's the second door on the left. Oh, Nick said with mock surprise. Well then, I guess that means he set me up. Set you up? I narrowed my eyes. You think Mason wanted you to walk in on me changing? I'm not saying he did, Nick said, grinning. But if he did, I'm not mad. I choked again. Wow, subtle. I'm not subtle, he said. I'm honest. I looked at him for a beat longer than I should have. The casual way he sat, Knees up, arms relaxed. The way his voice dropped just slightly when he said that last line. My room felt too small suddenly. Or maybe just too aware. Well, I said, clearing my throat. Next time, bring your own chips if you're gonna break into someone's room. Oh, I will, he said. Next time I barge in on you shirtless, I'll come fully prepared. We both paused. I meant snacks, he added. Sure you did. The bag of chips was suddenly very empty, and the silence between us wasn't awkward anymore, just charged. So, I said, after a few minutes of sitting on the floor with Nick in a comfortable, chip-dusted silence, do you just walk in on half-naked men often? Or am I special? He didn't even pretend to look embarrassed. Depends. Are you asking if this is a regular thing, or if I made an exception for you? That was a disturbingly smooth answer. He smiled and leaned back against the edge of my bed, arms behind his head. You haven't said I was wrong yet. I shot him a look. Oh, I'm saying it, with my whole chest. Nick smirked, gaze flicking quickly toward my chest before bouncing back up to my face. That the one I saw earlier? I rolled my eyes. So hard I saw another dimension. Wow, we're doing that, huh? Hey, you asked. No. I asked if you regularly burst into bedrooms like a discount fireman. And I said you might be an exception. Emphasis on might? He tilted his head, pretending to think. Okay, fine. I've walked into a few wrong rooms before. Oh, good. So this is just your thing. But, he added, pointing at me like he was revealing a major plot twist. This is the first time the guy I accidentally walked in on had a snack stash, sarcastic comebacks, and surprisingly nice legs. I coughed into my fist. Flattery. Won't get you out of trespassing charges. Wouldn't dream of it. He gave me a mock bow from the floor. But full disclosure, I might have seen you before, at the gym. I paused, chip halfway to my mouth. Excuse me? He shrugged. I thought you looked familiar. There's this guy who always wears a ridiculous floral tank and headphones so big they could pick up signals from Mars. I stared at him. That's me. I know, he said, grinning. I narrowed my eyes. So, let me get this straight. You've seen me at the gym. Multiple times. And just happened to end up in my room? Well, he said, rubbing the back of his neck, I may have also, asked Mason about you. I blinked. Casually, he added quickly. I didn't, show him a screenshot and say, set me up with your hot roommate. That would be weird. I opened my mouth, closed it again, then pointed a chip at him accusingly. So what I'm hearing is, you've been secretly gym-stalking me, got my name through a mutual friend, waited until my roommate was out, and then staged a wrong room moment. He grinned. Wow. When you say it like that, it sounds creepy. Because it is creepy. But also kind of charming, right? I hated that he wasn't entirely wrong. I hated even more that my face was getting warm. Nick tilted his head. You're blushing. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. It's kind of adorable. I crossed my arms. You're lucky I don't keep Mace in this room. You're lucky I didn't bring my own chips. We stared at each other for a second. Too long. His eyes were dark and amused and confident. Mine were probably doing that wide-eyed what-is-my-life thing. And somewhere in the middle of that unspoken stare-off, I realized I wasn't annoyed anymore. I was intrigued. Dangerously so. So, I said slowly, this was all a plan? Not exactly. More like an opportunity I didn't talk myself out of. Well, I said, raising an eyebrow. I'm not flattered. Liar, I laughed, tossing a chip at him. He caught it one-handed and popped it in his mouth like it was a victory. And honestly, maybe it was. Okay, I said, tossing the now empty chip bag across the room like I was done being emotionally stable. Let's settle this. Truth or dare? Nick raised an eyebrow. Bold move. But you should know, I don't do dares. Same, I said, stretching my legs out on the floor. I bruise emotionally and physically, so let's just do truth. Coward edition. I like it. Thank you. I do pride myself on being a well-adjusted coward. He grinned and leaned, his head back against the side of my bed. All right, you go first. I thought for a second. Okay. What's the most ridiculous lie you've told to get someone's attention? Nick didn't even pause. Told a guy once I was a hand. Model, he made me prove it. I ended up doing dramatic finger poses over his dinner plate. It was a whole thing, I snorted. Please tell me you left a tip with your hand when the check came. Worse, I finger-gunned the waiter and said, "These babies pay the bills." I buried my face in my hands. No, you're banned. My turn, he said. What's the most ridiculous reason you've rejected someone? I squinted. One guy said his favorite band was Nickelback. Nick gasped. That's cold. I have standards, and ears, he laughed. All right, my turn again. Be honest. How weirded out were you when I walked in earlier? I paused, then tilted my head. Weirded out? 9 out of 10? Terrified you were a murderer? Solid 7? Annoyed? 10? Curious? He raised an eyebrow. 12, I admitted. His eyes locked with mine for a beat, and I hated how warm it made my stomach feel. My turn, I said quickly, desperate to break the stare. Did you really think my room was the guest room? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he exhaled softly and rubbed the back of his neck. Truth? I nodded. No, he said. I knew it wasn't. My breath caught in my throat. Seriously? Yeah. I mean, Mason said, first door on the left. And I knew it wasn't a guest room. But I might have been curious. I stared at him, unsure whether to slap him or throw a pillow at him or offer him a blanket and ask about his childhood trauma. You do realize that's wildly creepy, right? I said finally. I know, he said, meeting my eyes again. But in my defense, I wasn't planning to stay. I just wanted to see you. Not like that. Not half-dressed. I swear, I just... He trailed off, looking suddenly uncertain. You asked Mason about me, I said, putting the pieces together. Didn't you? He hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I did. And he told you what? That I liked floral prints and awkward silences? No, Nick said, a small smile tugging at his mouth. He said you were funny, smart, and you make people feel like they're not being judged even when they're a mess. I blinked. That was not what I expected. Well, I said softly. Mission failed. I judged your socks the moment you walked in. He grinned. They were limited edition. They were limited taste. We sat there in the soft hum of the room, the game falling quiet between us. The air wasn't heavy, just still, like something had landed, quietly. But neither of us wanted to be the first to say it out loud. I didn't expect to like you this much, Nick said finally. I looked at him. That makes 2 of us, I replied. And we just sat there. Not knowing what came next, but kind of hoping it would take its time. It started with the chair. Nick shifted on the floor for the 5th time in 5 minutes, rubbing his back against the edge of the bed like a disgruntled cat. Okay, your carpet is made of literal sandpaper. I'm calling it. I need elevation. Would you like a throne? I asked, gesturing dramatically to the desk chair. He gave it a death glare. That chair wants to kill me. It creaked like a haunted swing set earlier. Then what's your plan, Goldilocks? He looked at my bed. I raised a brow. Nope, he smirked. I didn't say anything. You looked at it. I looked at the concept of comfort. I didn't say I needed to lay in your bed. Uh-huh. But it would be nice. I sighed so loud it registered on the Richter scale. Fine. One side. Do not cross the middle. That line is sacred. He stood and dramatically wiped his jeans like he'd just trekked through a desert. Swear on my duffel bag. Nick climbed onto the bed and instantly sprawled like he paid rent here. I stayed on my side, sitting up against the headboard, arms crossed. He laid flat on his back, hands behind his head, eyes on the ceiling, like he was counting how many regrets had led him here. You know, he said. I once had a date walk out halfway through dinner because I said I liked olives. That's fair. Olives are chaos disguised as food. See, you get it, he said, turning his head slightly toward me. What about you? Worst date ever? I tilted my head. Guy asked if I wanted to split a milkshake, then told me I looked like the kind of person who would bring their own metal straw to a funeral. Nick snorted. Okay, that's weirdly specific. He was weirdly observant. We fell into an easy rhythm after that, swapping tales of romantic disasters and mutual icks. He told me about someone who brought their mom to a date, just to meet her future son-in-law. I told him about a guy who gave me a business card before saying hi. It said, "Local heartbreaker, DM for rates." Okay, but, Nick said, between laughs, "You do give off floral shirt energy." I squinted at him. Is that a compliment or a warning? It's a vibe, he said, still grinning. You wear your confidence like it's optional, and your clothes like you dare people to ask why. That might be the nicest backhanded compliment I've ever received. Thank you. I practice. We both lay there side by side, our laughter settling into a quiet warmth. I could feel the space between us, barely a foot, but it felt loaded. Like if I shifted 1 inch left, I'd fall off the edge of comfort and into something a lot messier. Then, his fingers brushed my arm, just barely, a graze. A test. I didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't pull away. His hand stayed there, resting lightly against my skin. He didn't look at me, and I didn't look at him. But I could feel it. The steady, quiet beat of this is happening. Not a kiss. Not a confession. Just a breathless kind of permission. I glanced over at him. His eyes were closed. Or maybe he was just too scared to look. Same. I wanted to say something, to acknowledge it. But every word I thought of felt either too dramatic or too small. So I said nothing. And in that silence, his thumb moved gently over the inside of my forearm. And I let it. We'd gone quiet again. Not the awkward kind, though. The kind that's heavy with things unsaid. Comfortable. But also fragile. Nick's hand was still resting lightly on my arm, his thumb tracing small, slow circles. I'd stopped thinking about it after a while. It just became part of the air, like the low hum of the city outside my window or the soft creak of my ceiling fan spinning lazily overhead. Then, without warning, he moved. His fingers left my skin like they'd been pulled away by gravity. He sat up slowly, brushing crumbs from his shirt, and looked around the room like he was checking for exits or excuses. "I should probably go," he said, his voice softer now. "Didn't mean to crash your night." I sat up too, propping myself on one elbow. "Yeah, I mean it's late," he nodded, standing fully this time, grabbing his duffel from where it sat by the shelf. "I'll just grab a blanket or something. Couch still hates me, but I can fight the cat for it." I didn't answer right away. I watched him zip the bag, then run a hand through his hair like he didn't know what to do next. The way his shoulders dropped slightly. The way his eyes didn't quite meet mine now. He was giving me space. He was also walking away from it, and I couldn't tell which one felt worse. I looked down at the wrinkle on my comforter where he'd been lying a minute ago, at the faint imprint of where his arm had rested against mine. I hated how quiet the room felt without his voice filling it. I hated how much I didn't want him to reach the door. I cleared my throat. "You can stay," I said, my voice barely, louder than a whisper. "If you want." He paused, one hand on the doorknob. Slowly, he turned back. His eyes met mine, finally. And this time, he didn't look away. "Yeah?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, a little firmer now. "It's not like the cat will share anyway." His mouth curled into a small smile, that same crooked grin from earlier, but gentler now. Like maybe he hadn't expected the invitation, but had hoped for it. He let go of the doorknob, dropped the bag, and came back. This time, when he lay down beside me, closer than before, I didn't keep any imaginary lines between us. We didn't talk much after he came back to the bed. There was nothing left to explain, nothing to joke about. Just that strange electricity in the quiet, the kind that hums between two people who've let their guards drop a little too far to go back now. Nick lay on his side facing me, his hand tucked under his head like a makeshift pillow. I was still, on my back, staring at the ceiling again, but this time I wasn't thinking about what to say or how to act. I was just aware of him, the space he took up, the rhythm of his breathing, the heat radiating off his side of the mattress. A quiet reminder that I wasn't alone in this room tonight. His knee brushed mine once. He didn't move it. Neither did I. Outside, the city had quieted. Somewhere down the block a dog barked, and a car door slammed. Life went on. But in my room, time felt like it had folded in on itself. I reached over and turned off the bedside lamp. The darkness settled over us like a shared secret. A few seconds passed, maybe longer. My eyes had just started to adjust when I heard it. His voice. Soft. Barely above a breath. He said my name. Just that. Like he'd been holding on to it all night. Like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to say it out loud, but had finally given himself permission. And somehow, it sounded different from anyone else saying it. Lighter, slower, like he wanted to get it right. I turned my head, but I couldn't really see him. Just the outline of his face, the faint curve of his mouth, and the quiet glow of something settling between us. "Yeah?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He just let the silence fill the space again. But now it felt full of something. Something waiting. Something neither of us had words for yet. I didn't say anything else. Didn't move. Eventually, I felt his fingers brush against mine in the dark, just barely. And this time, I was the one who reached back. We fell asleep like that, fully clothed, barely touching. But everything felt exposed, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I needed to run. I didn't know what tomorrow would be, but tonight felt like the start of something. Have you ever met someone who wasn't supposed to stay, but somehow felt like home the moment they did? If this story made you feel something, drop a like in the comments and tell us, have you ever shared a moment like this with someone? Unexpected? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another story that stays with you long after the screen fades to black. And hey, tell us where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel.